I think they need to run the ball so much more like they did 2 weeks ago with Miles Sanders, because otherwise Micah Parsons is going to absolutely obliterate Jalen Hurts.
Another hour of power to go. And like we do each and every Wednesday here on the Football Playbook, we welcome in Philadelphia's finest, Kayla Santiago, checking in from Delmarva Sports. And she's got the Phillies. Your Phillies, my Yankees, buckle up. That could be a whole nother show. And I'm hoping that they meet and we have some October magic here, Kayla. But there is some magic happening in Philadelphia right now with the football team, still the only undefeated Eagles team. And we'll get into this Cowboys week in just a minute. But your thoughts and impressions from the week that was?
I'll say I think the Cardinals lost that game. The Eagles didn't win that game, but a win is a win at the end of the day. I'm worried about that offensive line a lot, and I know there's injuries, so I'm hoping that they're ready to go this week, and last week was just a rest. I think Jalen Hurts, we saw another week of him being more accurate, seeing those little scoop passes and making sure that he gets the ball out quickly, which I think is going to be imperative this week. The secondary struggled a little bit, and I think that's something I expected, especially with Devonta Maddox still being out. Overall, I think there's a lot of things that they needed to clean up. But once again, a win is a win. They found a way to get it done. But this week, there's going to be a lot of things that they need to work on every single day before they go and face that Cowboys team.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts once again gets props, kudos, and praise from the coaching staff. Yep. However, some of our media brethren are going to pick and point out things about Jalen's game. And this week he doesn't throw enough touchdowns. He's only got, I think, 4 touchdown passes. To me, my big bone with Jalen is he's taken too many hits. I think 85 hits through the first 5 games, which is like 17 hits a game, Kayla. As you know, over the course of time, no quarterback, I don't care how big, how strong you are, nobody can survive that kind of accumulation of hits. And it's only a matter of time until he gets a helmet to helmet down there on these rugby scrums down there on the goal line. So let me ask you this. In your opinion, what's the bigger problem? The lack of touchdown passes or the volume and amount of hits that the one Jalen Hurts has taken?
Oh, the amount of hits for sure, because I think that we've seen that he can definitely throw touchdown passes. I'm not worried about that. You look at his statistics through the first few weeks of the season, that's my least worry right now. I think Jalen Hurts can air it out. We've seen that already. And I think last week he really ran the ball so much because of the injuries on that offensive line. And watching that worries me a little bit because the protection is not as long. And in his head, he's like, I'm going to put my body on the line. I'm going to get these yards. I'm going to go try and get the first down. But if you're those receivers, you need to be running the best routes of your life, because the last thing you need is for Jalen Hurts, as you said, to get a helmet-to-helmet, to get a really bad tackle, for full force guys to be on him and him get hurt in some type of way. I think the receivers need to find more ways to get open, and that's something we just didn't see against Arizona at all. I mean, you watched that game. He ran the ball one too many times, and that was super frustrating to watch. Now, if you look back at the tape and different angles of the tape, you also didn't see receivers be wide open either. So maybe was it the right call in real time? Maybe, but once again, this is a league where you cannot put your body on the line like that anymore. So that's my biggest worry right now.
Yeah, I get concerned with that over the long haul. And, coming off that career day that Miles Sanders had 2 weeks ago, I thought the Eagles would resort more to the run game against the Cardinals. And yeah, we saw it, but maybe not as much from Miles Sanders. They get the Cowboys this week, who has an incredible pass rush. Maybe a way to offset that is to run the ball more. Miles Sanders went from 27 carries 2 weeks ago down to 15 a week ago. Do you see more, less, somewhere in between against the Cowboys this week?
I think they need to run the ball so much more like they did 2 weeks ago with Miles Sanders, because otherwise Micah Parsons is going to absolutely obliterate Jalen Hurts, and I cannot see that happen. I don't want to see that happen. He's a phenomenal defensive player, and if you allow Jalen Hurts to hold on to the ball too long, that's what's going to happen. So I think that they need to put the ball in the hands of the running backs. You need to trust Miles Sanders, and that offensive line probably needs to have the best game of their lives so far throughout the season, because the defensive front of Dallas is going to be extremely tough. So with that being said, they need to create holes for Miles Sanders. I think you're going to see the run game a little bit more, because I think the pressure is just going to come so much earlier than we've seen in past weeks to Jalen Hurts. So I think running a little bit of the RPO, giving it to Miles Sanders, or trying to have enough time where you can air it out to A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith or Watkins. But the run game, I think Miles Sanders needs to be getting one too many touches this week.
Yeah, and I think Nick Sirianni is meeting with the media later today. So we'll have more about the injury updates on specifically the offensive line. I think we'll have more information tomorrow. Jordan Mailata, Andre Dillard, still a possibility. We shall see. I will say one last point about the offense. I don't talk about him nearly as much as I should have. Dallas Goedert, I mean, he has become a yak monster in terms of yards after the catch. He's not only the number one player at tight end, he's not only the number one player in terms of a receiver, he's the number one player in the National Football League in terms of yards after catch. And the big play on 3rd and 12 last week was actually an audible that Jalen Hurts called, and Shane Steichen said they were in a play that was called for man coverage. Jalen audible to his own coverage play. It resulted in a big Dallas Goedert reception. And this guy now, I was a little bit on the fence about anointing him in terms of being a top 5 tight end, but it's clear to me now, Kayla. My vision is now crystal clear. Dallas Goedert has truly emerged as one of the top tight ends in the National Football League.
Yeah, and I mean, Philadelphia has been really lucky because they had Zach Ertz before, of course. But you look at Dallas Goedert, and the difference is he just doesn't fall down when he catches the ball. He's going to push and try to get that extra yardage, and he is going to be pivotal in this Dallas game. When you get him on those short slants, you expect him to get 5 or 6 more yards. And I think that's a lot of the play calling that's going to happen this week, because once again, Jalen Hurts is going to receive a lot of pressure, especially if Mailata is unable to play. And that's what I'm really worried about. If he's not able to play, there's going to be a lot of pressure coming in on that side. But Dallas Goedert has been that guy. He can run those short slants. He can get those extra yards. So I think we see that connection even more this week. He's just been so fun to watch. I mean, he's Philly through and through. He's so tough. He's going to go after everything. He's kind of like Miles Sanders a little bit, where you think you have him down for a second and he still gains 3 or 4 more yards. But listen, Philadelphia has been blessed with extremely talented tight ends. And I'm glad that they stuck with Dallas Goedert, because I think he's definitely the now and the future of this team.
He's tough, man, and he just gets better. It seems like every week he just continues to get better and better. I know every week we have you on here at the Football Playbook. It gets better and better. That's what we do each and every Wednesday with Kayla Santiago. Let's switch it up, talk a little defense, because I liked what I saw from this defensive line, and Jonathan Gannon playing. He employed 3 defensive tackles a lot of these diamond, and Brian Baldinger called the diamond and one kind of defense, where Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, and Jordan Davis all on the field at once, with Jordan Davis playing the nose tackle position. And it didn't necessarily show up in the stat box or the box score for Jordan Davis, but lining up over the center, gobbling double teams, making the guards come over and account for you, opening up the rush lanes for the Kaiser Whites of the world. I thought Jordan Davis played his best game. Our buddy Hassan Reddick had another sack on his good friend, former teammate Kyler Murray. He came through. I think the lone Eagle sack on the day. Let's take it in levels and start with the defensive line unit first, Kayla. I thought it was a very effective overall game. A lot of people complained about the lack of rush, but to Gannon's credit, it's going to be a different look, different game plan, different strategy on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at rushing Kyler Murray, too many times, and you worry about the weapons that they have and him being able to scramble out of that. And then you're trying to have guys like Fletcher Cox trace him down, and that's just not easy. But how about Josh Sweat too? I mean, I was really impressed with the game that he had against the Arizona Cardinals. He's another guy that I think gets better and better each week. And that's the one thing you look at the Philadelphia Eagles and you can say, wow, they're stacked at the line. And we've talked about it week after week. They have so much depth. So even if there's an injury, it's that next man up mentality. They have guys that can come in and be able to be fresh. And the rotation is something that I have loved watching week after week, because you pull these guys out, they have a second to breathe, they come in fresh, and they're ready to go. And when you face tough quarterbacks, when you face tough running backs, it doesn't matter, because this line has just been so fantastic so far. And everybody knows I love Jordan Davis. I mean, that guy is an absolute baller. No matter where he's at on the field, he somehow always makes an impact. And I think he's becoming a Philadelphia favorite, and for many reasons, because he goes out there, no matter what position. He could have one snap. He could have every snap in a game. It doesn't matter. He's going to go out there and do his part, and he is really fitting well with this defense.
Yeah, and my favorite play is the stand-up chokehold that he did. Looking like the Undertaker, and just grabbed the offensive lineman by the neck, stood him up, and then discarded him like yesterday's trash. That is what Jordan Davis. He's like a junkyard dog out there, and he played a season-high 29 snaps. I think that snap count is going to continue to increase on a weekly basis. And, yeah, I agree. I think he is going to be the ultimate X factor when it's all said and done. All right, let's go into the second level at the linebacker core. We talked about Hassan Reddick, got to the quarterback. Kaiser White, I thought, played solid. TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, I thought, did a good job kind of playing a shadow over the Kyler Murray and containing him. And we talked about it leading up to the game. When Kyler scrambles, when he runs around and starts rushing the ball, that's when he gets dangerous. Surprisingly, Kyler Murray didn't have his first run until like halfway through the third quarter. He only had 4 rush attempts on the day. I think that was a big part of the Eagles' defensive game plan, and a big part with TJ and Kaiser there in the second level.
Listen, I really like TJ Edwards a lot, but I think what I saw was one too many missed open tackles too. I think he had a little bit of trouble last week bringing guys down, and that worries me, especially when you look at the running back power of the Dallas Cowboys and Tony Pollard, and of course Zeke as well. You've got to be able to wrap these guys up. You cannot give them anything, because they will go after it until they have to. I'm not worried about Cooper Rush running the ball at all. Listen, I'm really just not. But they have these running backs that are extremely talented, and Tony Pollard is stepping up every single game. So if you're TJ Edwards, I think he had a good game, but I think that he needs to get back to the basis and just make sure that he's wrapping everybody up. I only really saw that this week, though. In previous weeks, I didn't see it, but it really made me notice it against the Cardinals. And if you make a mistake like that against Dallas, you might not be able to look back.
Yeah, that one play, I think it was Hollywood Brown who took a screen pass down there around the 10 or 12-yard line and just ran right up the gut of the Eagles defense. There was like 3 or 4 missed tackles. Like, that's some of the stuff they got to clean up. We saw some of that sloppiness in week 1 against the Lions. And, Jonathan Gannon acknowledged it in his press conference yesterday, so he's aware. Hopefully they get that tight and get that right for the Cowboys this Sunday night. You mentioned the Avonte Maddox injury earlier in the segment. I thought that was probably the costliest injury. And Josiah Scott, he's had his ups, he's had his downs. He's been a little bit streaky, but overall, in terms of what's being asked, and Gannon did say there's a lot being asked of that role in Josiah Scott. And I think it looks like we're going to see a lot of him again this week, but Darius Slay still, I don't think is 100%. He's been playing 79, 80% of the snaps. So we've seen a lot of McPherson. We've seen probably more Josiah Scott than we want to. How do you kind of gauge this Eagles secondary? And we'll throw Epps and Chauncey Gardner, who, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was picked on a lot last week. He also had a timely interception that boded well. And somebody that, maybe hasn't played at an elite level, but Gannon again said he's just so smart, so instinctual that the best is yet to come for a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But how do you kind of rate the secondary from last week, and what do you expect this week against CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and company?
I think that they had a very tough task last week, especially with Devonta Maddox not being back. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Darius Slay is not 100%. You can just tell that when he plays. He's kind of getting burnt a little bit, is what you never see from Darius Slay, but you can tell something's nagging him just a little bit. Now, when you look at Cooper Rush and you look at this Dallas Cowboys matchup, I know they have threats, and I understand that. But I think the bread and butter this week for Dallas is going to be them running the ball. And I think with that pressure on the defensive line from the Philadelphia Eagles, that's going to force Cooper Rush to get it out very quickly, and that's going to force him to make mistakes. So I don't think I'm as worried about the secondary this week, just for the pure fact of the matchup and the front that the Philadelphia Eagles have. I've said multiple times that Avonte Maddox, I think right now, is needed, and you can see that in the secondary. But when you look at this matchup and you look at the pressure that the front of the defense can bring, in my opinion, I think that's the least of my concerns. Now, you look week to week, you look at Darius Slay not being full, you look at Josiah Scott having to step up in this major role that he wasn't expected. I think you look at the secondary, and that's definitely one of the parts of this team that's starting to fall just based on injuries right now, and the depth's not there as much as it is in other positions like defensive line or that O-line as well. So it's something that worries me, but honestly, in this matchup with Cooper Rush, I'm not as worried about it as I was with the Arizona Cardinals, if I'm going to be honest with you.
All right, fair enough. Kayla Santiago, Delmarva Sports here on the Football Playbook, along with Ric Serritella. Let's talk a little special teams, because another week, another Philadelphia Eagle accolade. Dicker the kicker, Cam Dicker, your NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Oh, by the way, Kayla, and this was a fun one because he also beat Kyler Murray when he was a Texas Longhorn and they played Oklahoma in college. He sent Kyler Murray off with a game-winning field goal. And after the Eagles game, Coach Sirianni, Dicker the kicker was the first player Sirianni singled out in his post-locker room speech. And he said, hey, did that one feel a little bit better than it did against Oklahoma, Cam? And it was just a great moment in the locker room post-game. But how about Dicker the kicker coming in, being poised, and both teams had a backup kicker in that game. He certainly outperformed his counterpart in that matchup.
Listen, kickers matter in this league, and I know a lot of people say, well, they come in, they do their job, and that's that, but you saw it right there against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Cardinals with a chance to tie it up, and their backup can't do it. And I think you are stepping up into a really, really crucial role. Jake Elliott, he has been very consistent, especially from those long field goals as well. And you don't get these certain field goals if you're the Eagles and you don't win that game. So coming in that position, knowing that Jake Elliott's hurt, listen, I was impressed. And I was very, very excited to see that he was able to come in and not be a step off. Now, we'll see how long Jake Elliott is out for, but right now I think he's a pretty good backup. And we've seen it all over the NFL. I mean, Justin Tucker is absolutely phenomenal, the best kicker in the league, in my opinion. And he wins the game for the Ravens, right? After the Ravens week after week can't win at the end and drop the lead. So the kickers matter, and you need a good kicker because it can come down to that. It came down to that in the Cardinals game, and it can come down to that in the Dallas Cowboys game as well with how close these contests are going to be. So he stepped up when he needed to, and he deserves all the praise for sure.
You mentioned Justin Tucker. Oh, by the way, another Texas Longhorn kicker. And there's three of them now with Dicker and Phil Dawson. There's three kickers in the NFL from the University of Texas. And I got news for you. This is not the last you heard of Cam Dicker, the kicker. And unfortunately or fortunately, it's probably not going to be in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform, because once Elliott's healthy, he's the guy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be impossible to keep two kickers on the active roster. I can guarantee you this, Kayla. As soon as he goes back to practice squad status, then the very next NFL team that has an injured kicker or is looking for a kicker, they're going to be looking for Cam Dicker.
Yeah, it might be the Cardinals. Who knows?
Do that.
it might be the Cardinals. That was a good one.
Yeah, it might be the Cardinals. Yeah. One last one on special teams, because, we saw another muffed punt from the one, the only Brenton Covey, the human crash test dummy. I've been a big advocate of kicking the tires on Odell Beckham Jr., if not for any other reason than to return punts and kickoffs. Now, OBJ won't be ready. I heard a report he's targeting mid-November. Are you comfortable? Are you cool with Britton Covey the rest of the way? Do you want to kick the tires on an OBJ? Do you want to try out Devin Allen and give him a test drive? Where are you in terms of the return game through 5 weeks?
I think that we talked about this earlier in the year about OBJ, and I was like, absolutely not with the Philadelphia Eagles, but special teams can make or break a game. And I think when you look at OBJ right now, you don't necessarily see him fitting in that receiver core. And I don't know how much money he's willing to take or not take right now. And I think that's something you're going to have to look at. But you can get him as a punt return guy. I think you absolutely have to. I mean, you're going to come down to games where you need somebody to really get you in good field position, whether there's a minute and 30 left and you have no timeouts on the clock in the fourth quarter, whatever it may be. Once again, that can make or break a game. And I wasn't a fan of him being a Philadelphia Eagle at all because I thought, he's going to go into that locker room. The receiving core is already pretty good. But if he can come in for a few snaps on the offensive side of the ball for Jalen Hurts, that's just another weapon. And punt returns are crucial, and they're going to be crucial in the schedule that the Philadelphia Eagles have coming up later in the season and the postseason if they're able to get there with how they're playing right now. So I think, as crazy as it sounds, and I would have disagreed with it a few weeks ago, but I think if you have a chance to get him for that, you absolutely have to.
All right, I got Kayla over to the other side. I got to work on tone behind the scenes, and the tone is the next guy I'm going to work on coming over to the good side. But hey, listen, why not look for an upgrade? But also, addition by subtraction, if you look at some of the other teams in the hunt, like the Buffalo Bills, Von Miller's out there politicking. Could you imagine OBJ with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis? Whoa.
No.
Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show rolling out the red carpet. And I think OBJ would probably be wide receiver 1 on that Green Bay Packers. And the Rams, they haven't even touched his locker from last year. Like, why let and the Giants have been like, Brian Daboll's like, hey, yeah, maybe it's a positive. Like, and then don't look now, Caleb, the Giants are 4-1. Like, why let him go to the Giants or the Packers or the 49ers or bring him to Philly? Let's get it done. One last one before I let you go. I talked about it on the show yesterday. Matt Rule out in Carolina. There's talk about a fire sale. I talked about maybe the Eagles should explore the one Christian McCaffrey. Others in the chat room would like the defensive end edge rusher, Brian Burns. There could be a fire sale in Carolina. Do you think Christian McCaffrey at running back or Brian Burns at defensive end? Would you like to see the Eagles entertain a trade possibility there?
I have been a huge fan of Christian McCaffrey forever, but I think right now what you see with the Eagles and what you're going to see in the postseason when you face these tough offenses is that the defense is going to win your games. So I think Brian Burns could definitely be a guy that you go after. I like Christian McCaffrey, but I think right now with the rotation that the Eagles have, they're going to be just fine. Oh, and guess what? You have Jalen Hurts, who can not only throw the ball, but also has more rushing yards than the Derrick Henry. So with that being said, I think you look at amplifying that defense even more because injuries are going to happen. It's a really long season. And I think right now, you look at the secondary of Philadelphia and you're like, it's a little shaky right now with injuries, but you say that front and those rushers and the linebackers stepping up, it might not even get out of the hands of the quarterback because they're going to cause so much pressure in that front. So I think, in my opinion, if I was Howie Roseman, I go after Burns over McCaffrey.
All right, we'll see if they explore that opportunity, and we'll see what it takes to get a deal done. Kayla, I'm not going to let you escape out of here without a fearless prediction. So what do you got this Sunday night? Do the Eagles keep soaring? Do they stay undefeated against the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys? What do you got for prediction and score?
I'm not on the Cowboys hype train just yet, but I do think it's going to be a close game. It's always a close game. They're rivals, but it's at the Link. Are you kidding me? They're going to have Dallas crying out of there with how they're going to cheer and just electrify that stadium. I'm going to go 20-17 Philadelphia.
Okay, so you got a close one.
Yes.
But you got the Eagles continuing to win, and hopefully, I know Delmarva Sports keeps you busy over there. Hopefully, you'll be able to tune in and watch this one live. But tell our good listening audience where to find all your content, what you got on deck over there at Delmarva Sports, and any other messages you want to give to our Eagles brethren. You seem to have a lot of fans here in the chat room.
Yeah, so we do have an MMA fight next weekend. It's right around the corner. It's a pro MMA fight next Saturday in Salisbury. Tickets are available for that. We're talking Eagles and we're talking Phillies as well. I mean, we've been on the Phillies hype train. Luckily, Delmarva covers the Baltimore, the DC, and Philadelphia. And because Philadelphia is the only team in the MLB playoffs, that's been a lot of our coverage lately. So we definitely have been looking at that. We start minor league hockey coming up soon, which is really exciting. We're in the nit and gritty of high school football. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter and then my TikTok as well, Kayla Santiago 51, where I post all my sports takes and debates, kind of like this as well. So I'm going out there on everything Philly sports, NFL, NBA, and MLB. So a lot of fun stuff coming for sure.
At Kayla_Santiago1, and you didn't mention the 76ers because you're all over the Sixers.
I know. There's so much going on in Philly sports. Like, I just have so many emotions. They literally play in less than a week. Trust me, you're going to see every Joel Embiid tweet you could ever see in your life.
I know we are.
So be prepared for that because I cannot wait for NBA basketball. You know, I love the NBA. So that's around the corner. But right now, the Phillies and Eagles are definitely justifying all my needs at the moment.
I am by far an NBA expert, but when I do get my NBA knowledge and information, it's from Kayla Santiago's Twitter feed. And like Coach Sirianni said in his post-game presser, what a great time to be a Philly fan. So I got an idea, Kayla. We'll come back. We'll do it again next week. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Football Playbook like you do each and every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.